did bring you here. Thank you, Cave Johnson. And this is Crowbars and Portal Guns. Hello, Resistance members and test subjects, and welcome to Crowbars and Portal Guns. Today, we'll be discussing one of my favorite characters in the Half-Life Portal universe. And although we never actually see him in the game, he has one of the most in-depth personalities that Valve has ever designed. You know who I'm talking about? It's Cave Johnson. Okay. I just want you all to know that this episode is going to be a little bit different than the other ones. Instead of doing like a lore episode, this is going to be more like a timeline into the life of Cave Johnson, starting at when he founded Aperture up to the point of his death. Now, for those of you who know about Cave Johnson, he is the founder of Aperture Science, starting in the 1940s. Now, I'm going to try and keep this as close to canon as I possibly can, although there are no ways that I get everything right. So if there's something you see wrong, or something that you think I should revise, or something I messed up, or something in the wrong order, please let me know. If you're listening to this on YouTube, leave a comment, because this is going to be the backbone of when I do my entire Portal timeline. There's going to be a lot of similarities between those two episodes. Also, like always, if you do end up liking this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, or if you're just on Spotify, then, follow us. Okay, let's begin. In 1943, a young man named Cave Johnson founded a small company named Aperture Fixtures. Here he used his father's theories on farming, even though he had never farmed a day in his life, to create the backbone of Aperture. Theories like, do it from scratch, spare no expense, and never cut corners. And using these, Cave's company thrived. Aperture Fixtures mostly developed shower curtains, and these earned Cave the Shower Curtain Salesman Award in the same year the company had started. And his success didn't stop there. Soon, Aperture was offered government contracts with the United States military for their asbestos-laden shower curtains because these were fireproof and to be used by the soldiers. Cave had agreed, and with these new customers, he quickly became a billionaire. In 1944, just 1 year after starting his company, Cave wanted to expand, and with his new wealth, he purchased a 10-mile-deep salt mine in Upper Michigan, where they planned for this to be the new home of Aperture. Over the following years, the company boomed, and with a large team under him at this point, Cave made the change to his company and turned it to a more scientific direction. By 1947, Cave renamed his company the Aperture Science Innovators, where he still used his father's theories and an orthodox approach to build it up. Here, he spared no expense and sought out the best and brightest minds money could buy. Once again, this resulted in Aperture winning another award. This time they won the Best New Science Company Award. Over the next few years, Aperture Science Innovators grew, and the vast salt mine tunnels were used to construct additional regions to work in and test the company's many products. And by 1949, Aperture was ranked number 2 in the top 100 applied science companies by the Mechanical Engineering World Journal. As Cave's employees grew to know him, they learned just how quirky his character was. One specific example noted was when he created the 3 pillars of Aperture Science. In this he stated that science without results is just plain witchcraft. Get results or get fired. And finally, that if you suspect a coworker of being a witch, report them immediately, as witchcraft will not be tolerated. As the years went on, the personnel did not know if Cave was joking or if he was actually serious. Regardless, Cave had created a company from nothing, and it only continued to grow. Into the 1950s, Aperture continued to succeed. Aside from becoming the runner-up in the U.S. Department of Defense's Contractor of the Year award in 1952, Aperture's products were continuing to sell well to the public and the government. Their products were innovative and came at an extremely high standard, thanks to the vigorous testing procedures in place. Due to their reputation, Aperture was able to bring in the best of the best to test their products. These people were astronauts, Olympians, and even war heroes. Products such as propulsion gels, sentry turrets, and even the development of a quantum tunneling device pushed Aperture to keep breaking the boundaries of science. and with ample test subjects, an abundance of products in the testing phase, and an influx in revenue, Cave continued to expand deeper into the salt mines for scientists to make his ideas a reality. As the company grew, Cave came to the realization that he could not oversee activity in the entire facility due to how big his company had become. In response to this, Cave made two major changes to the company. First, he took on an assistant, the lovely Carolyn. Second, he set up PA speakers all around Aperture which played voice announcements and pre-recorded messages from him to help guide his test subjects and motivate his employees. By 1956, Aperture signed another contract with the U.S. government, once again boosting their revenue and selling their Sentry turrets to them. They also began selling their Sentry turrets to the public, to be used as home security, received even more of the skilled test subjects, and even explored potato science, earning them the National Potato Board Award for the promotion of potato science, also known as the Spirit of Idaho Award. But soon, Cave Johnson heard word of another science company, Black Mesa. This other facility, located in the New Mexico desert, was completely government funded and appeared to have similar work and ideas to Aperture. But due to Cave's success, Black Mesa was of no work. For those of you who have played Half-Life, Black Mesa should sound familiar. It's the company you played through in the first game in the New Mexico desert. Anyway, moving into the 1960s, the boom period that Aperture had experienced began to die down. This, in part, was due to other companies performing extremely well when the market became more saturated. But the major issue was how Aperture operated internally. Although the way Cave had built his company led to its initial success, their morals gave Aperture's problem in the long run. The scientists developed new and complex pieces of technology, bringing them increased revenue, but also came with their own dangers. The many products Aperture had invented began to be pulled from the shelves for violation of many health and safety regulations, which impacted the profits the company received. On top of that, the products in development became stuck in the testing phase to make sure they reached the standard of these regulations, which led to very few products actually being released to the public. Due to loss of Aperture's once great reputation, Kay prepared the company in the event of it being inspected by anyone with the authority to shut down. In 1961, on June 15th, Cave had his employees seal off Test Shaft 9. This shaft held some of the most inhumane tests and experiments out of the entire facility. Two of these tests include shooting an invisible laser at a subject that can slowly convert their blood into gasoline, and infusing a human with praying mantis DNA. This test is assumed to have been successful, as another test is fighting an army of mantis men.
Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news is we've got a much better test for you. Fighting an army of mantis men. Pick up a rifle and follow the yellow line. You'll know when the test starts.
Cave had stated that he simply just wanted to do science, and he had achieved that goal with the brightest minds around, but this came with the mutilation and often death of his test subjects. Although Aperture had sped ahead of the competition as a privately owned company with its secret experiments, other companies, such as Black Mesa, were government-funded and limited in their capabilities. Regardless of these regions of Aperture sealed off, the scientists continued to work on the safer side. This angered Cave, as he believed he was now limited in what he could explore, much like Black Mesa. By 1968, Aperture's situation declined even further as the product struggled to sell and their reputation was not what it once was. Kay became increasingly more frustrated over this time, as he believed that Black Mesa had been stealing his ideas. On top of this pressure and stress, Aperture was called to Senate after the disappearance of astronauts during testing. This hearing, products failing to sell, and government contracts being pulled, Aperture was declared bankruptcy. This had a huge impact on the way the company had to run. Of course, Cave hoped they would bounce back, and he pushed his scientists to keep working, even though they were now legally broke. Cave now began to struggle during this time. Thankfully, Cave's assistant Carolyn stood by him in this time and helped him as much as she could and became his closest confidant. where a strong relationship formed between them. Without the ability to rely on the group of people Aperture once had, Cave began to use psychiatric patrons, the elderly, child orphans, and the homeless people as test subjects. With the pursuit of innovation no longer being enough as an incentive, he began to also offer $60 to those who completed the test, and an extra $60 to those who let Aperture disassemble them, fill them with science stuff, and then put them back together. This offer was to appeal to his new subjects, due to the fact that many of them needed money, especially the people who were homeless. Although the problems Aperture had experienced were due to Cave's decision and lack of care for those around him, he instead blamed Black Mesa for the issues he faced, but in his rants, he announced over the PA system that he could not find any proof. In the 1970s, Aperture fell even further, and Cave was determined to continue pushing the boundaries of science. Here he reopened Shaft 09 and restarted the tests and experiments performed there, and in 1971, Cave had his scientists begin to create a secret project that only he and the scientists they trusted the most had access to. This project was called the Borealis. The Borealis was a large Healy-class icebreaker ship that sat in a dock far below an Aperture. This ship is said to have powers to teleport from one place to the next, making it so that travel on it was instantaneous. Cave had heard rumors that Black Mesa had somehow knew about the ship, and that they were searching for it. This had proved Cave's theories about Black Mesa to be correct, and proved that there was a spy within Aperture. Who this spy was, we never actually find out, by the way. To make sure Black Mesa would never find it, Cave didn't allow cameras, even ones for security, in the dock with the Borealis, the only protection being the many well-armed guards aboard the boat. With the new subjects, Aperture began to function as it had before, but Cave hated that he had to lower his standards when it came to the new volunteers. With his ego bruised, Cave, once positive and energetic voice announcements, turned into mean and aggressive rants, where he ridiculed the less than perfect subjects. With one more attempt to bring back Aperture, Cave started flowing resources back into the Quantum Tunneling Project, renaming it the Portable Portal Project. This program focused on the formation of two portals using a handheld device, which Aperture named the Aperture Science Handheld Dual Portal Device, or the ASHDPD. To develop and test this device, they built the Enrichment Center, a large building that housed offices, laboratories, and test chambers. In 1981, even more desperate to save Aperture, Cave decided to once again push the mobility gels. He has many attempts, but cannot seem to be able to form a new one. Suddenly, he has an idea. Years ago, while Aperture still had its government contracts, Cave had heard that NASA had requested a large shipment of moon rocks from a top-secret trip to the moon. After remembering this, Cave decided to purchase these moon rocks against the wishes of his financial advisors. They told him that they couldn't afford $7 worth of moon rocks, let alone the $70 million he ended up paying. He then had these rocks ground up and converted into gel. Upon conversion, Cave and his scientists discovered that the moon rocks worked well as a portal conductor, able to keep these portals open longer than a few seconds, like they had before. Believing that this was the break he needed to save his company, Cave oversaw the conversion of all moon rocks himself. Though in its condensed state form, the new substance was safe. It was extremely deadly, though, while it was being ground into dust, and soon Cave had become extremely sick from inhaling these particles. He developed a sickness his scientists called moon rock poisoning, and it caused damage to his kidneys and lungs, weakening and poisoning them. With his company losing money and him being in a weakened state, Cave began to lose his optimistic views on life. An example of this is that once Cave believed that if life gives you lemons, you should make lemonade. Now, he's heard having this rant through Aperture.
All right, I've been thinking. When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad! I don't want your damn lemons! What am I supposed to do with these? Demand to see life's manager. Make life rue the day it thought it could give Cave Johnson lemons. Do you know who I am? I'm the man who's gonna burn your house down with the lemons. I'm gonna get my engineers to invent a combustible lemon that burns your house down.
As he could no longer hire experienced test subjects, and less of the poor people were volunteering, he made it mandatory for all Aperture Science employees to participate in testing. As he says, employees are replaceable, knowledge is not. And so the mandatory testing begins. Cave eventually began to realize that he wasn't going to overcome his illness, and he needed a way to keep Aperture running once he was gone. So he started the Glau's Project. The Glau's Project was an artificial intelligence that was capable of having a human consciousness uploaded into it, giving someone the ability to have their personality processed into a computer and in a way live forever. But Cave became more scared that he might pass before the Glau's Project was completed, so he gave the order to his scientists that if he was to die before it was finished, two things would happen. First, his assistant Carolyn would become the new CEO of Aperture Science, and two, so the Glau's Project wouldn't go to waste, Carolyn was to be uploaded instead of Cave, even if she was against it. So Aperture continued into bankruptcy, and the company, once loved and appreciated by the U.S. government, became hated and feared until the Senate moved to drop the contracts with Aperture. The government then used this money to bear fund Black Mesa, and then Cave Johnson died. Cave Johnson, a man of innovation. His death shook the company, and even though he was gone, the company still functioned due to Carolyn taking control. Deep in old Aperture, you can still hear Cave's voice echo through the halls as you venture through each era of this once esteemed company. I'd like to thank you all for listening. I'm so sorry about the static around the end. I'm trying a new mic today. I'm still figuring out. As always, if you like this episode, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow us. And until next time, resistance members and test subjects, keep gaming.